Friends and colleagues, welcome to the 145th, 145th webinar today. At INHAF's Rethinking City webinar series, this is a season of municipalities, the season of the local self-governments. While today on 8th April, we are discussing municipal leadership with a strong panel of national and international subject experts and thinkers. We had a rich exchange yesterday and day before on the related themes. Let me tell you what. On 6th April, we examined, is urban sector adequately financed? That was the question. With Dr. Ravikant Joshi as the lead presenter. And he made a tremendous impact. And it became very clear that the money to meet a major challenge in form of a rampaging urbanization, which will place some 870 million people in cities by 2050, a visible deficit in reasonable basic services to the people, and a huge ambition of a $30 trillion economy by 2047, which is almost impossible without efficient, productive, resilient, and inclusive cities, is highly inadequate. What I'm saying is this: if this is all to be done, resources are very inadequate. It is perhaps 1/3 or 1/4 of what the experts and knowledgeable institutions estimate. Is that low. Less than 1% of the national GDP, that too with a skewed distribution within the sector. And I was absolutely surprised to get the statistics. More recently, it is found that 40% of the pie has gone to the metro rail and 30% to PMAY, 70% of the resources to just these 2B investments. Yesterday's session was titled Crystal Glazing Impact of 16th Finance Commission on Urban Governance. It was a very interesting title, I thought. It noted some unprecedented allocation by the 16th Finance Commission, which has recommended rupees 3.6 lakh crore for the urban local bodies for the period 2026 to 31. It's a major 230%. As a matter of fact, Raviji explained to me that if you consider everything is not 230%, it's 300% increase over the 15th Finance Commission. Yet, there were questions. Will this money reach our cities? Will it be used properly? Is this money enough for the task on hand? Even if we have the money, do the local governments have the capacity to use this money properly? What about small cities? Will they get their share of finances? It's a series of questions that came up, a very rich discussion. Today, we're looking into the municipal leadership by an eminent panel of national and international experts. We all know that municipal leadership in India suffers from severe limitations in power, financial autonomy, and accountability, and is often reduced to a toothless tiger by the state-level interference and dominance of a government-appointed officer over the elected mayor. We're very aware of this. Weakened mayoral authority, limited financial autonomy, short mayoral tenures, interference by state governments, fragmentation of governance, poor talent management, corruption, and mismanagement are the known curses afflicting our local bodies. I distinctly remember the then finance minister of Gujarat, when I was very, very young, probably 25 years, voicing his concern on the quality of leadership in the municipality in a workshop on municipal governance. I distinctly remember he said that half of the elected councillors were not worth running a pawn shop worth rupees 5,000. What he was saying, that how can they manage a big and a complexity if this is the quality? That I thought was a very harsh comment on the quality and caliber of political leadership in the local government. But it appears that things have not changed very much. The structural weaknesses prevent municipal leadership from effectively addressing the challenges of urbanization in India. This meeting absolutely will go a step forward. The panelists will not only analyze what is wrong and what is not working and why, but also where it is working, why and how, and what could be done to change, improve, and capacitate our leadership of the third tier of the government. Those government must work and deliver. I don't think we have an option. They must work and deliver. Let me thank the co-presenters of this 4-event webinar series, the Center for Multi-Level Federation and Praja. We're also grateful to Dr. Tathagata Chatterji, professor at XIM University, who is moderating these webinars and whose constant efforts have made this possible. Thank you, Tathagata sir. I am also grateful to this distinguished panel for making time and agreeing to share their views, perspectives, experiences, and insights. I'm going to thank everyone at the end by their name, so I'm not doing it now, but we will certainly do this. They deserve it. And lastly, as many of you know, INHAF has been running this webinar series titled Rethinking City for the past 4 years, and this is its 145th event. This is an effort at putting multiple dimensions of India's daunting urban challenge in the public domain through a multi-stakeholder dialogue. We have found this effort worthwhile in every conceivable way and hope to continue doing it till we enjoy credibility and organization doing it in public interest and receiving support of both the experts, specialists, and also those who find time to attend, participate, and encourage us to continue and do more. So we're very grateful that we are doing this for 4 years, and we've got tremendous amount of, every time I call, I think, Jha Sahab, he's never told me no, and everyone just is available, and that's the strength of this effort. So thank you very much, and over to Souvanic Ji, who's going to kind of moderate the session today in absence of Tathagata Sahab. I understand you're here only for a while, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Souvanic.
Yeah. Very good evening. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes. Very good evening, afternoon, and morning to all our very eminent speakers from different parts of the world and India. So, thank you, Kirtiji, for very informative and great introduction to this, the second webinar in this thematic series on municipal governance in federal systems. And we are about to start our second of the webinar in this series is on municipal leadership. So, and we have a very eminent panel of speakers. I'll be coming after some time. So just to briefly introduce, just to extend the discussion what Kirtiji has initiated, cities in federal systems occupy a very complex institutional space, negotiating authorities, resources, and accountability between higher tiers of government and local constituencies. At the heart of the negotiation lies the office of the mayor, whose powers, legitimacy, and administrative control vary significantly across countries and cities. In India, despite the intent of 74th Constitutional Amendment to strengthen urban local bodies, municipal leadership remains institutionally constrained with short mayoral tenure and other limitations, which Kirtiji has already mentioned. Executive authority is typically vested in state government appointed municipal commissioners, with mayors often playing largely ceremonial role. However, there are important variations across states. In contrast to that, in United States, they offer a range of executive mayoral models, particularly in large cities such as New York, where mayors are directly elected and exercise substantial control over administration and budgeting and other aspects. A very different but equally instructive model emerges from South Africa, where the post-apartheid constitutional framework introduced executive mayoral systems within a broader vision of developmental approaches of local government. These variations reflect deeper questions of federal power, arrangements and degree of decentralization, and democratic accountability. With these few words, I would like to first invite one of the co-organizer of this event, Center for Multi-Storied Federalism. So we have Dr. Balveer Arora, who is the chairman of Center for Multilateral Federalism, to share his experiences and his opinion on this particular webinar today. Welcome, Dr. Balveer Arora ji, to share his views.
Thank you very much, Souvanic ji, and thank you, Kirti Bhai, Tathagata, and some new friends that we are having today. On behalf of the Center for Multi-Level Federalism, I would like to congratulate Tathagata Chatterji for curating this series of 4 encounters specifically built around the questions that political scientists ask of who gets what, when, and how. I think today we are discussing the who, the leadership part, and the when and the how involves financial outcomes also, which we are going to be taking up when we discuss what was mentioned earlier, the 16th Finance Commission, and the way in which the future is presenting itself over the next few years, but in the longer perspective, as Kirtibai mentioned, the perspective of 2050 and 870 million urban population. What I'd like to place before you are a few considerations that we at the Center for Multi-Level Federalism, and I emphasize multi-level because there are some doubts about the number of levels of the federal system. Recently, I read an opinion piece by a former finance minister of a state who felt that strengthening urban government, self-government bodies was taking away from the second tier of the federal system, weakening the state governments. I think this kind of uh, calculation of a zero-sum arrangement between levels is not very productive, because the sharing of powers, finances, and responsibilities in a multi-level framework, we have had in the literature extensive use of the term multi-level, and I insist on spelling it as one word, though the hyphen is often used. Multi-level planning was one of the first things to emerge. Multi-level governance has taken shape, notably in the European Union, and I'd like to uh, extend it to this concept of multi-level federalism, where we see the different levels as being entrusted and empowered to perform the functions that they are A, best suited for, best equipped for, and B, that they are given due importance, not as a zero-sum game, but as a win-win combination where each level supplements the other. One of the concepts that is prevalent in Europe is the subsidiarity concept. Subsidiarity as something which designates what is best treated at the level closest to it. There are some conceptual issues with subsidiarity because its origins come from a highly hierarchical system, namely the Catholic Church, which organized itself from the parish to the diocese and moving up. The basic structure was extremely hierarchical, with the authority centralized at the apex. So while the subsidiarity principle is useful for drawing up lists of functions and allocating them between levels of government, I think we should stay clear of the hierarchical content that is implicit in the subsidiarity concept. And that is something that remains very powerful in the thinking on vertical devolution of powers and on vertical management of challenges that face both urban as well as rural government. What I'd also like to emphasize, and I'm flagging a few issues which are which seem to me to merit some detailed reflection by this distinguished panel. At the last session, Kirti Bhai, who inspires us in many ways in continuing this work, ended on a very pessimistic and despondent note. He asked us what are the reasons for hope. Are there any reasons for hope? And whether we can look forward to something that is going to improve in this dismal scenario. You recalled again today the remark of on the quality and caliber of leadership. Now, for a political scientist, the way in which leadership emerges and is nurtured is closely linked to the possibilities and opportunities that are open to it. In a theoretical framework, in federal studies, local self-government are, you might say, idealistically viewed as nurseries of leadership, where leaders uh, grapple with issues that they know about, that they are close to, and thereby grow in depth as well as scope to be able to tackle issues at higher levels. That is the idealistic point of view. In the real world, the question of political dynasties has been raised. The question of how women's reservation is going to be worked out, whether it will be through a list system in proportional representation, with parties deciding who will uh, be chosen, and the question of how leadership at the local level can be equipped to perform this role of being a nursery for future leaders. Now, I know that Gujarat, in the days of the in pre-independence days, I should say, was considered one such nursery, and a lot of senior leaders uh, gained their spurs while uh, exercising functions at the municipal level. We see the possibilities in other systems, in other federal systems, and therefore I'm particularly happy that we are going to be discussing examples. But all of us have been struck by uh, the outstanding leadership of Zoran Mamdani, and how that can be a case study for looking at how leadership at the level of a metropolitan city can possibly perform and grow into bigger roles. The census is going to be upon us very soon, and I was looking at the statistics that were put forward. I think it's important to keep those in mind. So we are told that we have 784 districts. We have 5,127 statutory towns, which therefore by statute are obliged to have some form of governance. And we have 4,580 census towns, which have urban characteristics. You are all familiar with the definitions and the criteria which are used to make these classifications. Undoubtedly, these more precise figures will emerge. The reason why I am citing this is that even the task of mapping the size of the problem is something that is a challenge. And I think Tathagata has very nicely curated this series. We are in the third phase, going to be looking at the challenges for small and medium towns. And that is something that generally escapes attention. The 16th Finance Commission, with its massive emphasis on the upgrading through central impulsion.
Sir, have we
I
lost
think,
you?
I think Balveer sir has become mute. Sir, Balveer sir, you are mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had my connection broke briefly, but I am back now. I'm sorry for that interruption. What I was saying at that point was that the way in which the we'll have discussion. We'll have occasion to look at small and medium towns, and in the fourth one that Tathagata has prepared for us, we will look at the fiscal dimension also. We must keep in mind that the model that is emerging for urban development is not taking seriously the fact that we are a multi-level federal system. It is disputed rather at different levels. It is disputed by the states. A state finance minister who says that it's weakening the state if the cities are helped. Now, maybe the objection is to the model of development, the central schemes, and because we have the experience of the smart cities, which was there's a lot to learn from that. So what we have today, and I'm very happy that we have this panel which is going to be discussing this, is the possibility of uh, identifying best practices and at least trying to see to what extent multi-level federalism can be injected into thinking on how these problems uh, need to be tackled. Finally, I think uh, I would like to end by saying that strengthening local bodies at the cost of states is not an objective, because we had this question of an indestructible union with so-called destructible states, and we had a state that was destroyed. But the way in which we have to see it is that local bodies are outside the purview of the union to a certain extent, and so it depends on how the states view them, how they nurture them, and how they give space to them, give space to their leadership, and give space, financial space for them to grow and develop. So I thought with these few remarks, which come from a perspective where you would have guessed I'm uh, attached to the idea of multi-level federalism, I hope that we'll be able to learn from each other. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Balveer ji. So, thank you again for flagging very pertinent issues related to multi-level federalism and the challenges and the future opportunities. So, I hope the our eminent panel of speakers would certainly would address some of this. So I would now invite our second speaker, uh, Dr. Tinashe Carlton Chigwata, who is the head of the multi-level government, Dula Omar Institute, University of Western Cape, South Africa, which is a very, very renowned institute on urban governance. And my question, so Mr. Tinashe, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Thank you. So my question for you to speak on is in South Africa, to what extent the concentration of executive authority in the hand of mayor has improved integrated planning and service delivery, and to what extent it really facilitated the situation, or what are the new challenges emerging? So just one point I would speak before you start. In the first round of discussion, we'll have 7 to 8 minutes for all of the speakers. And then again, we'll have a second round where you can certainly expand and reflect on what others says. So yeah, it's over to you, Mr. Tinashe.
All right. No, thank you so much. Let me, I think, just start by expressing my gratitude um, for the invitation to participate in this exciting webinar series. And yeah, the special thanks to Tathagata for the invitation. And also, I think from the first speaker, I think some of the points that have been mentioned resonates with me very well, because those are some of the challenges that we are grappling with in South Africa at the moment. The issue of financing, the issue of the relationship between your municipalities and your state. I think those are some of the issues that we are dealing with. And then, of course, the bigger one here, the capacity of municipalities to perform. I think that's also, I think, a big one that we have at the moment. But let me make brief remarks regarding the issue of mayors in South Africa. So maybe for the benefit of those that are not familiar with the South African system, I'll quickly just touch upon on the multi-level government system in South Africa, and then go on to the issue of the mayors. So in South Africa, we have what's referred to as a quasi-federal country. So it's more or less shares a lot with India. So we have got three spheres of government: national, provincial, and local. And those three spheres are distinctive, interdependent, and interrelated. There's also a constitutional division of powers and functions and resource raising powers among these three spheres of government. And of course, something that is closer to India as well, we've got revenue sharing that is overseen by an independent body. So this is in brief the South African multi-level government system. In terms of the makeup of the system itself, we have got a strong national government or federal government, very strong municipalities, and weaker provinces, which in your case are your states. So you've got your states that are sandwiched between these two strong spheres in national and provincial government. Then the local government system, we've got what we refer to as war-to-war municipalities. So the entire part of South Africa is under the jurisdiction of a municipality. So there is no area which is not governed by a municipality. And we've got three categories of municipalities. The first one is your metropolitan municipalities, which are usually your larger cities, including Cape Town and Johannesburg. We have got your district municipalities, those that preside areas that are governed by more than one municipalities. And then the last one, we've got local municipalities. In total, we've got 257 municipalities. In the 1990s, we had more than 1,000, but now that number, due to consolidation, has gone to 257. The overall framework for local government is determined by federal or national legislation, but your states, in this case, we call them provinces, they've got a very limited role in terms of the actual establishment of municipalities. And one essential part where the states plays a key role is in determining the type of a municipality, which means whether a municipality can have an executive mayoral system or what we refer to as an executive committee system. There are fundamental differences between those two mayoral systems, which then points to that question of whether the mayor is weaker or is stronger. We have separate national and local government elections. So your federal and state elections take place at the same time, but local government elections take place at a different time. Mayors have got a term of 5 years in office, so they've got a largely longer term of office compared to what we see in other countries. So let's look at the two types of mayors. So your strong mayor, which is the topic that I've been asked to speak to, is what we normally refer to as the executive mayoral system. So this is the most powerful type of mayoral system. And this mayor is elected by members of the council, so by councillors. And once this mayor has been elected, he or she appoints his or her mini cabinet. And this cabinet is accountable to him. This is the most common system throughout the country. So if you go in 8 of the 9 provinces, this is the most common form of mayoral system that we have. But we also have another system that is called the executive committee system. So once a municipal council is elected, it elects an executive committee which exercises executive powers of the municipality. And the council also elects a mayor that chairs that executive committee system. So this is much more the mayor in this system is quite weak because the decisions are taken by the executive committee system, which he or she chairs. This executive committee system is accountable to the municipal council, and it must reflect the composition of the council in terms of the parties that are represented there. And this system is used in one province, which is KwaZulu-Natal province. But there have also been suggestions that this system be used in municipalities where there are coalition governments. How has the strong mayor system helped or fostered effective planning and service delivery? So the strong mayoral system, I think, has improved the state of local government because now you've got a strong face of local government in the form of a mayor. And the mayor has got key roles around integrated development planning and budgeting. It is the mayor that tables the draft plan and the draft budget. And the mayor has got very specific functions around, holding city managers accountable. And the mayor is in a position to make decisions quickly. So this strong mayoral system allows the streamlining of decisions. It is also enhanced, I think, strategic coherence as well, in the fact that you've got this person where they can make executive decision making powers. I think, but the biggest, I think, benefit, as you can see, is that as there is a strong mayor, he or she is the face of local government. He's the face of the city. For example, in my case, I'm based in Cape Town. The mayor is the face of the city of Cape Town. So, ideally, it makes political accountability easier to enforce because there's a particular face that you can point at. But there are also, I think, downside of this strong mayoral position. But let me just leave this for the second part of the discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tinashe, for discussing one part of the strength of the executive mayoral system. We will come again back to you in the second part of our discussion. So I would now like to request our third speaker, Dr. Wafa Al-Daily, who is the Vice President of ISOCOP and Executive Director of INHAF International. Can you hear me, Dr. Wafa?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. So my question to you is in the context of USA, is the strong mayoral system is leading to some kind of risk in terms of over individualization or personalization of urban governance in large cities like New York, Chicago, or others, and how that is actually facilitating or creating some hindrance in the long-term institutional stability of urban governance. Yeah. Dr. Wafa, please.
Much. Thank you for having me today in this very timely discussion, I would say, and thank you for the invitation extended to me to contribute from the perspective of the U.S. Angle. So previous speakers spoke about different issues from different parts of the world, India and South Africa, and I think there are many shared perspectives and things between all cities and metropolitan areas as well as countries across the world. Before I address the central question that you asked about over-personalization and institutional stability, I want to offer some kind of initial background about the U.S. Fundamental federal kind of system running in the country. So it's very important to understand that American cities have no constitutional standing whatsoever about the cities themselves. The United States Constitution does not specifically mention cities, counties, or even local government at any point. And for the 10th Amendment reserves the power of the states. For most American legal history, cities were treated not as a democratic entities in their own rights, but as part of creation under the law of the state. So they exist under the government of a state, and they allow them to exist after that. The result of that, we have three-tier of system. We have the federal government on the top, where they are setting the policy and distributing the annual budget for all states. Then we have 50 states, and in the middle between both, which we can consider them the real gatekeepers for city power. And we have almost 89,000 local government at the base. So these are delivering the visible face of governance like policing, zoning, water, infrastructure, schooling, transit, and etc. Having said that, we have in this discussion like a strong model of mayoral models here in the U.S. With describing a very specific subset of landscape of that entire architecture in there. With these large cities, we have the home rules charters, where the state can be guaranteed with some power as a city board, self-governance power, like New York City is a very a presentable example, I would say, but it's not the norm here in the U.S. We have the two type of rules on declarants. If you allow me to explain a little bit about it, that's the D-loans rules and the home rules, which are the most important legal distinction between the two doctrines. The first one, D-loans rules, which was established in the 1869 by Judge John D-loans, that rules the municipalities' cooperation, where they possess only the power explicitly granted to them by state legislatures. And then there is no doubt about whether the power exists or not. The doubt is how to resolve this against the city itself. They still control law in approximately 20 states across the nations. And in these states, mayors cannot enact or issue any policies that state legislatures are not explicitly permitted or supporting, regardless how large of the city is, or how strong is the mandate, or how urgent is the need in there. The second doctrine is the home rules. In contrast of that Dillon's rules, we have the 26 other states or more than states have granted cities board self-governance. The power comes through constitutional charter provisions. New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, they are operate under that home rules charter. We can here know the why New York City mayor can issue an executive order requiring jurisdictional warrants to, for example, ICE, or sign a rent for stabilization, the rent policy, or having also, let's say, a pilot grocery program in there, none of which requires the state authorization. But it's very critical to understand that even under the home rules, cities exist at the pleasure of the state government and itself. Like, for example, for city, New York City, we have Albany. It's overdue New York City, whatever it comes from outside from the New York City mandate. And the state still preempt the law of the city itself. So why or what makes the mayor strong? And before I go over the personalization of the power, I need just to overview the mayor model we have here in the US. So we have a genuine strong model system requires three things simultaneously at the same time to happen. The first one is a direct electoral mandate, where the mayor must be chosen by a full city electorate, not appointed or selected by a council. The second one is a real executive authority. The mayor must be able to appoint and dismiss agency heads, issue executive orders with immediate effect, and lead the full city bureaucracy. And the third one is the administrative control. The mayor must have operational head of day-to-day activities within the governance of the city, not just a figurehead who is approved decisions made by others. New York City mayor possesses all the three powers and the test and under his authority in there. And that's why it's a very recognizable case in here to discuss. And the scale or concrete terms of the New York City mayors manages the workflow. Let's say we have 300,000 plus people in there with annual budget. In 2026, it's almost $115.5 billion, which is the largest than the national budget of the majority of the world's countries. And the mayor appoints more than 40 agencies, commissioners, spanning in every domain in urban life, from housing to sanitation to criminal courts, and always allowing and helping him to do the executive orders as well and immediate legal effects. And he has the mandate and command for New York Department, Police Department, and also fire departments. With that, we have 5 models here in the US. The first one is strong mayor council, which be elected. A mayor will be elected, and it has a high power that comes from New York, Chicago, and Boston, I would say. Then we have the second one is the council manager, which is elected the council or appointed the professional city manager, or mayor, or as a chair. And the power is kind of moderate. And this is represented like 55% of many American cities in here, including Phoenix, Dallas, San Antonio, and San Jose. The third model is the weak mayor council, where the council holds most of the power, and the mayor is largely just ceremonial. And this is 10% of the cities across the US, including the Minneapolis, Milwaukee, and other providences. Then the fourth one is the commission, where we have the elected commissioner of each head of department. It's kind of hybrid legislative executive kind of a power. And the power is shared between the mayor and the commission. And it's only 1%. And it's kind of historically is becoming in Portland. And the last one is the town meeting, where direct democracy is happening with eligible voters vote on local policies, and almost like it's 1%. It's not that much. So coming like for the state of New York, we have 6 elected offices. We have the first is the mayor. The second is the council. The third is the city controllers. And the fourth is the public advocates. The fifth is the board president, and embedded within the structure, the term intact of by voters, where they have the power also to say things like no New York City mayor can enrich beyond that without constitutional change requiring another referendum. For the example that we have about the most prominent example that we have, Zohran Memdani. He is the most compelling current illustration of everything happening, and it describes the mayor power in here. He is the 112th mayor of New York City in the office since January 2026, beginning of this year. He is the youngest, I would say, mayor being elected in the office, and the first mayor, Muslim mayor in the New York City history. He is South Asian and also American, the first from Queens place, and he was elected with over 1 million votes, which is like a record there since 1969. So he defeated former Governor Andrew Cuomo. For the election, it was kind of a historic election. What happened was widely described as one of the most stunning and upsetting in the modern American history for municipality history. And Memdani defeated the former governor, as I mentioned, Andrew Cuomo. Once he is a Democratic Party, and he was really strong in there. But we see the needs of people in there, and being close to people, how you can interact with people and respond to the needs of the city and respond to the needs of people at that time. People, they were like very, especially those marginalized, and New York City is a very diverse. It's very, very diverse, and it has a lot of complexions in there. So people, they felt that the person who is going to respond to their, the curve is going down in every aspect in life in New York City. So the candidate won with 1 million plus votes, which was a cross threshold for the election. And at that night, it was like kind of a ceremonial, the voice of people emerged, and it being very strong with that. For Mamdani, he ran as a democratic socialist on a platform on affordability. His big domain was there of affordability for everyone, affordability in housing, affordability in healthcare, affordability in schools, affordability in transportation. And he promised to freeze approximately 2 million rent tenant, like it's a big promise, but that's something that he wanted to help the people who are living in this big metropolitan area. From his day one, he was trying to speed symbolic clarity. His first executive order revoked every executive order of his predecessor, Eric Adams. Once he gets into the office, he just vanished all these and indicated the bribery charges against the former mayor. And it includes 2 other orders. One of the orders was expediting the land use review procedures that cut the standards of housing review procedures from 7 months to 90 days. And also force the tax force to streamline housing approval.
Dr. Wafa, excuse me, we can take up later, if you don't mind, some of these issues, because we will have a second round. So I'd like to first have one round of discussion of all, and then certainly we'll come back to you. Please don't
Thank
mind,
you.
huh? Yeah, I
Thank
will
you,
come back,
absolutely.
certainly. Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Wafa, for highlighting the various type of mayoral models and also the issues of the people, citizens, and city, particularly New York City, in the context of very high-profile election. Now, let me turn to India. I'd request Tathagat first because he wants to leave. I think Tathagat is okay
Yeah.
okay. So
Mm.
if you can briefly speak on the issue of the first mayor in council system in India, that is in Calcutta, how it represented a kind of a middle path between ceremonial mayors and executive mayor, and what's happening there. Yeah.
Thank you, Souvanic. And it really feels bad that I have to leave this very fascinating conversation. But unfortunately, actually, I'm on a tour and I have to go. Anyway, so the point that you have raised, Souvanic, that it is interesting that Calcutta really has a mayor in council system, which in Indian context really stands at a middle path between an executive mayor and a system where the commissioners are the de facto heads of the municipal governments. So it shows, it provides a politically led executive structure where mayor along with the mayors of in council are collectively responsible and exercise executive authority over the municipal functions. In a way, it mirrors a cabinet style of governance at a city level, where the mayor and councils are assigned specific portfolios, like in a cabinet form of government at a state or a national level. So mayor and councils also have got are like mini ministers. So they are in Calcutta. They are a mayor in council for water, mayor in council for primary education, mayor in council for primary health, street lighting, and so on and so forth. About the different functions of the city government. And so what it does that it provides some kind of a politically guided framework for the municipal administration. And it also provides a ownership of the decision making, at least in principle. And it is a step towards a democratic accountability. Another important aspect of the Calcutta's model is that there is a recalibration of the relationship between the elected leadership and the bureaucracy. Municipal commissioner here also plays a very significant administrative role, but under the political executive led by the mayor. And also, one interesting fact of the matter is that um, mayor in Calcutta had, ever since the elected mayor system started almost 100 years back in 1923, has always been a significant political leader. So at the in the pre-independence time, there were prominent leaders like C.R. Das, Jatindra Mohan Sengupta, or Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. But even after 1990s, in the post 74th Amendment situation, also the mayors had been fairly strong political leaders. Uh, so, but that does not mean that this system is without any challenges. So being indirectly elected means their political mandate is mediated through the council, somewhat like, in South Africa also, it seems that there is a council type system. So here also that mandate is somewhat limited. But on the other hand, it is a balance of power. between the mayor and the council, and also between the mayor, the city government and the state government. Like most Indian cities in Bengal, also it is a strong state level framework within which the city functions, but nevertheless it has got more say compared to most other big Indian cities like Mumbai or Delhi or Bangalore or places like that. So in a way, it is also reflective of the political stability within the system within which it functions. It shows that strengthening of the political leadership does not necessarily require a directly elected strong mayor. So in Calcutta, we had in recent times we had very effective mayor like Vikas Bhattacharya or Prashant Sur and others who had held a lot of political heft. And even today, the person who is the mayor um, is the de facto second person of the government, because he not only he is a mayor of Calcutta, but he also simultaneously holds the post of the urban development minister for the state government, and also the chairman of the Metropolitan Council for the Calcutta Metropolitan region. But this also brings in the question about accountability. See, I mean, what we see that one person, he is a mayor of a city which is the municipal corporation area according to 2011 census is 4.5 million. He is the chairman of the Metropolitan Planning Committee of an area which is have a 15 million population, and he is the urban development minister of the state government. Now, is it possible for one person to handle so many responsibilities? So this is an anomaly. But from a systemic point of view, this shows that uh, the strong mayor need not be directly elected mayor within a cabinet form. It is also possible to have a functioning effective mayor, and it's an incremental reform model. And so, and there is it has to have a clear delineation between the political leadership and the administrative authority. And without that clear demarcation, the system can become more complicated. So I would stop with this, and I'm extremely sorry that I have to leave today. So I would catch up, I think, perhaps with the YouTube video or something like that. Yeah. So I would end now.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
Tathagata,
sir.
for
Thank you, Tathagata, sir. Thank you.
explaining nicely the Calcutta system, the mayoral system, and also the challenges what we are facing under the current political or dispensation. Now, I would like to move to Dr. Ramanath Jha, who is a distinguished fellow at Observer Research Foundation, which is a very prominent think tank in the country on urban governance and public administration. My question to Dr. Jha is from an All India perspective, is there any recent shift towards directly elected mayor system or more empowered mayors? And is it actually representing some kind of improving accountability or finally in the service delivery performance? Dr. Jha, please.
Thanks, Roy, sir, and Kirti, sir, for this opportunity. Audible?
Your voice is a bit. Can you check your microphone? Just it's not very clear.
Am I audible now?
Yeah, but is it you need the headphone or if you need remove the headphone? Would it be
Better
difficult?
now?
Oh, absolutely
Better.
fine. Absolutely fine.
Is this fine? Okay.
Your
Thanks, Roy sir and Kirti sir, for this opportunity. I'll answer the questions in the second phase of the discussion and come directly to some summary remarks in regard to municipal leadership. The short answer, of course, to your question is no, we are not moving in the direction of strong municipal leadership. In fact, there have been strong currents of trying to undercut the cities and the states trying to take over powers that the 74th Constitutional Amendment meant for the cities. Before I make some remarks on municipal leadership, I must emphasize that in the present state of municipal affairs in India, proposing any reform in municipal leadership is like putting the cart before the horse. Given the substantially disempowered state of Indian ULBs, having quality leadership in a powerless organization is like replacing a caged parrot with a caged lion. So whether mayors are directly elected or indirectly elected, whether they are the chief executive or merely a ceremonial head, makes little difference in a hugely disempowered municipal body. That's the first point that I would like to make. The second proposition that I would like to put forth, and I'm daring to make this proposition, is that Indian ULBs in general don't have leadership in the real sense, any leadership. Cities have appointed municipal commissioners in general, and they should be looked at as managers. It would be a little presumptuous to call them leaders, and let me explain. Firstly, they are career bureaucrats, and their tenures are in the hands of the state. So as career bureaucrats, they have firstly an operational role. That is the principal role of managers. They are supposed to perform a given job to the best of their abilities. In the ULB, they would ensure that municipal services are rendered efficiently, deadlines of tasks are ensured, and citizens' grievances are addressed. Furthermore, they have a regulatory role. See that rules and regulations of the city are followed, unauthorized activities are punished, and citizens are not inconvenienced. A conscientious commissioner might even take up a developmental role, that is, plan for the future of the city, take up projects that would be needed for the future. However, their leadership role is very limited and partly forced. As the top manager, they need to lead the municipal employees in the sense of setting targets for them and monitoring their performance. However, they are not charged with the task of leading the elected members of the ULB. That is left to the political executive. In a peculiar way, therefore, the leadership role gets fractured. So politics in the ULB would be led by the mayor, the chairman of committees, and the party that is in power, with a lot of meddling from the state. So in the peculiar arrangement that prevails in the ULB, the municipal commissioner perceives the political leadership as the opposition, and the ULB's political leadership perceives the municipal commissioner as the opposition. So it is reciprocated from both sides. Now, unlike the governments at the center and states that are led by the political executive, the third tier of governance, as I've explained, does not really have a very clear-cut leader. Surprisingly, the much hyped 74th Amendment did not even think it necessary to mention the mayor. Neither do the state statutes spend too much time on the mayor. To just give you one example, the BMC Act, for instance, mentions the mayor in a mere 2 sections. Section 37 of the BMC Act provides that the corporation shall, at its first meeting after the general elections, elect one of its councillors as the mayor, who would preside over every meeting of the corporation. And Section 36 stipulates that it is the mayor's responsibility to convene the monthly meeting of the corporation, and he or she will be removed from office by the state government if there is a failure to convene 2 consecutive meetings of the corporation. As one can see, the mayor, he or she is not placed in the position of a leader, and there is no one in the city that can perform the true leadership role. That is, provide vision, drive innovation, and set the whole city towards achieving its cherished goals. We were talking about the New York mayor, so it would be good to contrast that. Now, the New York City Charter, the very first chapter of the charter is devoted to the mayor. And I would quote from it. It states that the mayor will serve as the city's chief executive officer. He shall have a monopoly over all appointments and dismissals, including those of administrators, departments, commissioners, including the police commissioner and other officers not popularly elected. He shall appoint 1 or more deputy mayors, have the powers of a magistrate and the powers of a finance board. And Section 8 of Chapter 1 leaves no doubt for any scope or interpretation. It states the mayor shall exercise all the powers vested in the city. So we have these 2 extreme examples of the kind of leadership that exists in 2 different systems. Now, the consequences of powerful mayors generally have been that some of them have done very path-breaking work. For instance, we have the example of the Mayor Curitiba in Brazil, who put together the city's and the world's first bus rapid transit system, and created the integrated transport network. It's something that we emulated in our cities. It's not in the best of health in our cities, but we tried and emulate the BRTS in many of our cities, and it's currently functional in about 7-10 of them. We have the example of the mayor of Barcelona, who turned the city into one of the smartest cities and did pioneering work in the Internet of Things industry. Now, what these mayors had in common was that while they were strong, achievement-oriented personalities, they were also backed by long tenures and enormous authority at their command to convert their visions into reality. Now, let us call this powerful model of mayor as the DEAM model, that is, directly elected executive mayor. We have a lot of examples of this model in various cities of the world. The model exists in some of the cities of US, Germany, Italy, Spain, the United Kingdom, where London is an example. Slovakia, Bulgaria, Romania, Slovenia, Albania, Ukraine, and Hungary adopted this system in the 1990s. From what I gather, Poland switched to the DEAM system in 2002 and Croatia in 2009. There are several other countries and cities where there are directly elected mayors, but there are also exceptions. Like in countries such as Iceland and Latvia, they follow an indirect election method, and Belgium and Finland have an appointed chief executive. Coming to India, it's important to look at what the Second Administrative Reforms Commission recommended. It recommended the powerful mayor model. It stated the commission is of the firm view that executive power must be exercised by the elected mayor because basic democratic legitimacy demands that power is exercised by the elected executive. Only when the elected executive exercises real authority can people understand the link between their vote and the consequences of such a vote in terms of provision of public goods and services. If the elected local government has no real authority, and if executive powers are vested in an unelected official appointed by the state government, then local governance is reduced to mere symbolism. I think these words are extremely important. And therefore, the commission was of the view that the mayor should be the chief executive of a city government, and the city government should have the power to appoint all officials, including the commissioner, and hold them to account. Unfortunately, this recommendation of the Second Administrative Commission did not find any support in India. So, in the current situation, there is a strange kind of a situation where the arrangement has pitted an entire elected local body as opposition to the municipal commissioner. This is fraught with serious consequences of misgovernance and poor municipal performance. Local councillors are dissatisfied with their individual as well as collective position of executive powerlessness. They are therefore highly prone to exercise de facto power through a variety of tactics of putting pressure on the chief executive to do their bidding. Since the councillors have no accountability in law for any action taken by the commissioner, there are no limits to their demands. The tactics of councillors are often countered by commissioner by equally diverse methods, which essentially stalls decision making. The situation becomes more critical for the commissioner in cases where local political majority rests with the same party that rules the state. In such situations, the state government could be forced to transfer the commissioner out of the municipal body, and this is to keep the party flock together. Irrespective of how a situation plays out, in the end, it is the city that loses. So misgovernance is the result from either a wrong decision that is taken or inefficiencies as a consequence of stalling. Even for these cited reasons, it is advisable that power and accountability squarely rests on the shoulders of the elected leaders. That much is quite clear. Cities with huge responsibilities must have a system that allows swift decision making. Unfortunately, ULBs are saddled with systems that are slow and responsibilities are blurred, and they have gaps that allow accountability to escape.
Dr. Ramnath, can I just, we can certainly come back to you. So we'll have, because we'd like to have one round from all, and we'll have some more time for the second round. Can you go back?
So I'll conclude by saying that the situation is ripe in Indian cities for a change in the leadership context. However, the cities themselves are powerless entities. We would therefore have to deliver first self-governing and empowered ULBs. No point electing caged lions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jha, for very nicely explaining the global picture and also the Indian scenario of this municipal leadership and its internal contradictions. I would now like to quickly move to Mr. Tikender, who is the former deputy mayor of Shimla, and who has worked on Shimla and also be a part of the Kerala Urban Commission. So yeah, Tikender ji, it's your turn, and my question to you is how, considering the Kerala, which is quite an example in terms of devolution, decentralization, and participatory governance. So, is there a greater executive authority? My question is for the mayors in Kerala, translated into stronger accountability and better urban outcomes? And what kind of administrative or political challenges are connected with this? If you can elaborate on this.
Thank you, Dr. Souvanic, and thank you all my esteemed panelists, Kirti Bhai, Dr. Balveer Arora ji. So as you know, I'm sandwiched between being the first directly elected deputy mayor of Simla, and then of course they disbanded the process. They didn't want directly elected. And of course now we have the same old procedural form in which the councillors amongst themselves elect the mayor and the deputy mayor. And of course, last 2 years bubbling with the Kerala Urban Commission, the only said, in fact, I am a trail to the lone surviving member there, Kirti Bhai, the National Commission on Urbanization, the only commission that India had. And I am the continuing part, the only state in the country, the province in India to have a state urban commission. And of course, the policy was approved just a month ago by the cabinet. So it's a great achievement. I think before dwelling on Dr. Souvanic on the point that you said, I have a fundamental departure to what is being discussed, and let me borrow it from what Kirti Bhai stated right at the inception. I won't take much time. I will just take 5 or 10 minutes. That's all. See, empowerment for whom? So I see cities leadership as a democratization process, the process of democratization. And I borrow this phraseology from the founder of our Indian Constitution, Dr. Ambedkar, that when the so-called developed world or the global north did not provide voting rights to every individual, we were providing this voting right to each and every one, irrespective of the caste and creed that we had. But the warning lesson that Dr. Ambedkar brought before us is that one person, one vote should translate into one person, one economic unit. I mean, of course, the vocabulary is a little different, but that's how I understand the entire process. So to me, the entire process of democratization or the entire process of empowering mayor should eventually lead to this basic spirit of the Constitution. But as we all know, and I'm sure this has already been debated in some of the webinars organized by INHAF, is about the fact that the two major stalwarts of our freedom movement in India, Mahatma Gandhi and Ambedkar, were at crossroads so far as the urban governance is concerned. Because Ambedkar was completely fascinated with people moving to the cities and ameliorating their distress, and why it was important for him to build this whole consensual framework for urban governance. But at the same time, we didn't find Mahatma Gandhi was more fascinated with the whole question of Gram Swaraj. It's not a question of right or wrong, but that's how we evolved. And eventually it took us 3 decades or so that in 1992, we had the first amendment, the 74th constitutional amendment, to have regular elections to the city governments and to the rural governments, what you call the ULBs, and the urban local bodies and the rural local bodies. Now, having said that, in this framework, Dr. Souvanic, if I have to build my argument of empowering the mayor, then it is not empowering the mayor per se, what Dr. Jha was also pointing, it's the institution of people's governance. Have we been able to create that? And I would say, unfortunately, not, because I was also a member of the National Task Force to review this 74th Constitutional Amendment with K.C. Sivaramakrishnan, who was one of the persons who scripted the 74th Constitutional Amendment. And unfortunately, the basic spirit of the 74th Constitutional Amendment that of course emanates from Kirti Bhai's National Commission on Urbanization. Of course, there are many aspects, but the 3 Fs that we talk about, the finances, functionaries, and the functionaries, finances, and Kirti Bhai, what is the third one? The functionaries, finances, and what is the third F that we talk about?
Just come to me. I think just a second.
The finances, functionaries, and it'll strike me very soon. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, it'll come to me up.
Yeah, so the 3 Fs, unfortunately, nothing has been evolved. But I link it to, what would the city, for example, what we just heard Dr. Wafa talking about, the whole process of, so to me, democratization, why do you require an empowered mayor? I see it as a cohort of what I call the over-centralization of the fiscal architecture that has been further compounded with the post-liberal, neoliberal economy post-90s, where we find not just the entire taxation system, but if you look at the 16th Finance Commission recommendations, and I beg to differ, there's nothing that the 16th Finance Commission talks about the urban local bodies. If you see the per capita resource allocation, we are at an abysmally low intergovernmental transfers. So we continue to be at 0.5% of the GDP, whereas countries like Brazil, country like Philippines is 3.1% of the GDP. India continues to harp on somewhere around 0.5 to 0.8% of the GDP. So we are a very tertiary form of process. Why? For the simple reason, because Indian cities, no one wants to lose control of the Indian cities. Why? For the simple reason, Indian cities generate some 90% of government revenues. Indian cities generate some 70% of the gross domestic product of the country. So in this process, we thought after the 74th constitutional amendment, because we were getting wedded to the neoliberal economy, that let us treat cities as engines of growth. That's what Kirti Bhai and the team, suggested us. And once we have cities and engines of growth, these cities should spatially transform into what was the Nehruvian economy to a neoliberal economy. And there you require this whole democratization of the process where you have decentralization. To me, therefore, 74th constitutional amendment inherently had this flawed understanding of that cities would become some centers where one of the major processes, one of the principal foundations of cities would be to attract investments, to ensure that cities compete amongst each other. Mumbai was taught that they have to compete with New York. Likewise, Calcutta was taught that they have to compete with some other city across the world. But unfortunately, as I said, none wanted to pass on the control to the city government, except for some, like for example, the mayor and council that we have in Calcutta, or the devolution, some kind of devolution process that took place in Kerala. Perhaps the only state in the country where 40% of the planned budget goes to the local governments. So this is something very new. This is what we, in fact, are discussing on the municipal finances through the Commonwealth countries. I'm part of that team to bring out a paper on municipal finances in this whole cohort of the Commonwealth group of countries. So that I would say Kirti Bhai is an anomaly. Look across the board and you will find what is the basic function of the city, and how do you think that the city gets empowered? I was talking to Applebaum, and together we were there in Paris in the climate change talks, and we know that and later the then president also walked out. And I remember the confidence of Mayor Applebaum, the mayor of Boulder city. He said, "Don't worry, Tikender. We govern the cities in US, and we'll force that we come. The federal government also to come back." So the point is, I was asking the mayor of Boulder, I said, "How do you spend your time?" And he said, "I spend my time, say, if I have 10 hours of work in a day, then 2 hours I am a grievance redressal stuff, and then 8 hours I spend on planning and, all those processes." Ask any Indian mayor in the country, how does an Indian mayor spend the time? Dr. Souvanic, if they have 10 hours, 9.5 hours goes into grievance redressal. So I think one of the fundamental questions of where you empower the city mayor is where you transfer these functions. So the functions, finances, and the functionaries. The functions that I was missing. The most pertinent function, if the empowerment has to take place, and I count it from the larger democratization process, and that's where I borrow words from Dr. Ambedkar, is the whole point of land use, the whole question of land use planning. Unfortunately, no city in the country, and when I say no means no, including cities in Kerala, they do not have planning as one of their important functions. Now, if you're not planning the city, which means there's some other parastatal that is planning the city, and Praja is part of this cohort of webinar series that we are doing. They have brought out a very interesting city governance index. You can go through that and you'll find how abysmally low are the functions being transferred to the cities. So I see it's not just the empowered mayor, but it's the empowered people and the council, which was also kind of envisaged in the 74th constitutional amendment. Unfortunately, that's not. Now, lastly, Dr. Souvanic, what we have tried to do in Kerala, because I was the one who was a lead into the chapter called the collective local governance, of course, the growth drivers. And in collective local governance, we borrowed something from the US, we borrowed something from our Latin American friends, and there where we've said a city cabinet. So we have proposed a city cabinet to be headed by the mayor. But unlike what Dr. Wafa was pointing out, the New York mayor, because it's beyond the domain of a provincial government to even think in those contours. So what we have proposed in the city cabinet is that the steering committee would comprise the city cabinet. So all the members of what they call the standing committee would be part of the city cabinet, and they will play an executive role. Not just that, because I was completely into the whole process of how do we democratize the process of people's plan, very bottom up, which is so important in a gigantic country like India, with so large a population, where almost 400 people move as migrants. And this is a great migration taking place from the north to the south. I mean, it's a big number. I mean, if there are 4 million people in a state like Kerala who come in as migrant people and 4 million people who migrate out. So how do we envision as a larger process of governance? It is there where we have suggested 3 councils along with the other standing committees that we have to be part of the cabinet. The 3 councils would comprise the first time that a workers' council is being proposed in the city, so that if you have 90% people who are in the informal sector and who have no say. I mean, look at the precarity in which the Indian cities and India's urbanization is going through. So city council, the business council, and of course the citizens council, so that you can build in the whole question of local economic developmental strategies and actors. And this whole, the entire alienation of the youth that you find. So therefore 25% of the council seats to be reserved for young people less than 30 years. So there's some very radical disruptions. And of course, the starting point, the entire process of planning to be shifted to these cities, where the whole question of director planning to be part of and to be taken care of by the mayor. Lastly, Dr. Souvanic, that I want to add, because this whole question of the bureaucrats controlling, and the bureaucrats being manipulated or played, this is what Dr. Jha was also pointing out, by the provincial governments. So there we have said the term of the commissioner in the city, and we've termed the commissioner the chief executive of the city instead of the commissioner, to be co-terminus to the term of the city council, and to be selected by a member comprising 3, the mayor, the minister, the local self-government, so that you have a political control, and third, the local self-government secretary, who's a bureaucrat. But not just a bureaucrat, you can even get the person who's a professional kind of stuff. So let's see how these disruptions work. It is the time that has to prove. But the point is, at least Kerala is thinking beyond it. They did one experiment with the People's Plan, 40%. They did wonders on that. I mean, look at the way they have been able to eradicate absolute form of poverty and the kind of. But I think still, I mean, if you honestly ask me, 2 years I spent there being member of the commission, there is alienation. Cities are imploding from inside. And but at least there was some kind of journey within the process that they need to handle all that processes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Tikender, very nicely explaining the issue of democratization, which is largely ignored in our existing notion of cities as only the engines of growth, and bringing out, highlighting the new kind of disruptions in the Kerala proposes in their urban policy. Thank you, Tikender. Now I'd like to move to Mrs. R Vachana, Associate Director, Policy Janagra, again, another very eminent, very renowned think tank in our country. And Mrs. Vachana has a long experience from 2015 that Janagra is working on the initiatives like ASICs, and the vast experience on ASICs that report every year, which is very flagship initiative. And so my question to Mrs. Vachana is, based on experiences of working on this initiative, what is your opinion on these institutional factors which we have highlighted in our concept note, like election, tenure, the duration of the tenure, and the authority? What are actually, in a pan-Indian perspective, what are shaping the effectiveness of the municipal leadership, and what are the kind of new directions which could be thought about? Over to Mrs. Vachana.
Thank you, Dr. Souvanic. It's actually Miss Vachana. But yeah, thank you. It's lovely to be part of this panel, and it was wonderful to hear from the other esteemed panelists as well. So I think I would, a lot of aspects have already been discussed about, especially that is focused on political and bureaucratic leadership, and to avoid repeating the same, let me not get into further details on political leadership as such, because I guess it's already covered adequately. But one thing I would like to reiterate, and I completely aligned with what Mr. Tikender and Dr. Ramanath Jha articulated, is that when we talk about leadership, it is not about political or bureaucratic in India's context. It is fundamentally strengthening urban local governments as institutions of self-government as envisaged by the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. And one critical point I think we have to remember is also that while we keep saying urban local governments are third tier of governments, in India, it is actually not true, because the constitution has not recognized urban local governments as a distinct tier of government. It is basically a sub-tier to state governments, right? Which is why it is part of 7th schedule. And this often creates, which is one reason why we have such varied models across states and union territories in India. And it is also perhaps one reason why urban local governments do not get the powers, autonomies, like as we see in other examples which were also discussed, especially in South Africa, etc. as well. So that I think is an important point to keep in mind. Now, coming to why I think the institutional factor is fundamentally this misalignment between what is envisioned by 74th CA and what is happening in reality. Political aspects of political leadership has been abundantly debated today, so let me not get into it. However, I would like to bring another dimension of municipal leadership, which is representation of women in municipal leadership, right? And 74th Constitutional Amendment Act did something really wonderful, which several globally well-run cities actually haven't been able to achieve, which is actually opening doors for several women, several from even marginalized communities to be represented in the city council by providing 33% reservation for women in the city council. And about 19 states have actually increased this reservation to 50%. So today, as we speak, we have over 40,000 plus women councillors, out of 80,000 odd councillors in India, which is an amazing, democratic achievement, I would think. However, the issues are also about, and we know, globally there is abundant literature to basically say that women in leadership basically result in better social development outcomes, right? But we are not able to leverage women in leadership adequately in case of our cities. One, because the situation of proxy representation still continue in different parts of India. Second, several of the women who enter into political leadership in cities are first-timers. One of the studies that Janagraha did, called City Leader Study, actually showed that a lot of women even do not have any professional prior experience, forget even political experience, right? So there is no systematic way of inducting them to the system, to train them, to build confidence in them, to be able to effectively deliver and fully leverage on their leadership capabilities. Basically, it's all learning on their own. And a lot of things, a lot of times, generally this applies to councillors across, but the challenge for women is different, right? So the second piece is, while we have made great progress in terms of representation, political representation, we are not doing a great job on representation across other key aspects. So, for example, if we look at the women ministers, urban ministers at the union level, so far India has had only 2 women urban ministers. One was Ms. Sheila Kaul. During her time is when 74th CA was introduced, and Musina Kidwai was the other person who passed away yesterday, right? And as we speak, there is not even a single state in India with a woman urban development minister. When we at Janagraha, we did an analysis to look at the other leadership positions held by women in capital cities. While we have about 18 out of the 35 capital cities are led by women, there are only 5 cities with where women are municipal commissioners. So essentially, what does this mean? So just like how Mr. Tikender also spoke about, for whom the city responds, for whom the city basically functions, is also determined by who is represented, whose voice is there on the table, right? So to effectively use the potential of women leadership and to also ensure that women's voice and requirements are reflected in the city, which also responds to women's needs. Essentially, to have cities for women and women for cities. And the reason why we say women for cities, cities for women is also because of caretaking responsibilities, etc. A city that can cater to women typically will be able to also cater to all groups, right? So this is one fundamental aspect I wanted to raise in this platform. The second piece, which is tied to administrative leadership, even and some of us spoke about how executive authority is higher for bureaucracy in India's context. However, I would also like to point out that while we think they have powers on paper, if we look at the tenure of municipal commissioners, our study showed that every 10 months a municipal commissioner typically changes in India. It's much better for large cities, but it's really worse for small and medium-sized cities. Similarly, the experience that they have with regards to urban is also quite limited. The average urban experience that our municipal commissioners have is just about 2.7 years. So which means there is a critical issue of both stability and expertise that happens. And now what are the factors that enable them to exercise their executive authority? Staffing vacancy is 37% on average. It is not like the municipal commissioners can't even decide, not forget the mayor, but even the municipal commissioner cannot decide who her team would be. So there are no powers over recruitments, no powers over finances. So fundamentally, the issue is to resolve for institutional strengthening. Fragmentation is another problem where clear activity mapping needs to happen across what an urban local government will deliver vis-a-vis state government departments and parastatals in a city. Unless we resolve that, I don't think we will be able to fundamentally get cities to deliver on what they're supposed to. So the question that we have to resolve for is not who is leading, whether it is a mayor or a bureaucrat, but are we even having a system today where they can deliver, right? Today, we don't have cities who has a single accountable authority who's responsible for the city and who's accountable for the city. And that is what we need. And I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vachana. Very nicely highlighting two major issues. One is the representation of the women in the political leadership and their role. And the second one is the systemic or the structural deficiencies in the executive authority, be it mayoral or commissioner, at what level it may be. So very interesting conversation. Now would like to move to the second round where you will all the speakers will get about 3 minutes to reflect on the points which have been discussed or expand their earlier conversation. I would like to go back to Mr. Tinashe. You were discussing about the challenges of the South African system, or if you want to add anything on the issues already discussed.
All right, thank you, facilitator, for giving me the second opportunity. So I do agree, I think, with a number of points that have been mentioned by my fellow panelists. I think the point around the fact that a strong mayor only makes sense in a strong local government institution. So we cannot separate, I think, the position of a mayor from local government as an institution, and in particular cities. In the South African case, I think cities are very, very strong. I think they have a local government has got a special status in the constitution because it is a level of government. And your bigger cities, which are your metropolitan municipalities, are the only category of municipality that doesn't share, functions with other municipalities. So they're quite strong. So the position of a mayor, I think, should be seen from that perspective. And in our case, where you have executive mayors, I think they've been quite decisive in leading, the planning and budgeting process, identifying priorities which a municipality must fund. Of course, these priorities must be, endorsed by the municipal council. their mini cabinet, which is which you call mayor's committee, or the MACO in short. I think it's quite influential, and of course, it is a cabinet of the mayor. It means it is chaired by the mayor. But in practice, we also see that I think there's a big gap in terms of what is the intention and what we see in terms of service delivery. I think it is quite clear that if you look at it, only a few of the 257 municipalities are functioning well. There are big service delivery gaps that you see on the ground. And this is despite the fact that local government is quite strong, and the cities in particular metros have got a special place in the South Africa's multi-level government system. The concentration of power in the executive mayor normally requires a counterbalance in the form of strong oversight from the council. We see in practice that strong oversight is not always there. And as I already mentioned, because the members of the mayor's committee are essentially accountable to the mayor, they are also not in a position to exercise oversight over what the mayor does. We have also seen despite the fact that there is this executive mayor's position, the issues of personalities and capabilities make a big difference. In some of the cities, mayors have been able to make a big mark, but in others, not so much, despite the fact that they more or less have similar powers. We've also seen the issue of high turnover of mayors, particularly now with the new era of coalition governments, which we have seen in a number of the big cities. There have been a high turnover of mayors, which often result in the loss of institutional memory. And in municipalities where there are hung councils, where there is no majority, we have seen that almost all political parties, the prime target is that position of the executive mayor, which makes stability difficult to achieve. So these are some of the challenges that we are experiencing in the South African case, where local government is quite strong, where cities have got significant powers and revenue raising powers. Some of the cities are able to raise as much as 75% from their own sources. So they're quite influential. But on the ground, we see that there are big, challenges around service delivery. The fact that integrated development planning has not resulted in effective service delivery in communities. So those are some of the, I think, challenges that we are experiencing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tinashe. Dr. Wafa, I have a question regarding the US model. What we saw during Mamdani's election, specific social agenda or the democratic socialist agenda in terms of affordable housing or public transport and jobs and others. So is there what I was just wondering that the plan he's making or the agenda he's proposing, will that have a complete tenure, like 4 years or 5 years during his tenure? And will that agenda will be having some implications for the next tenure, or this could be completely shifted or modified by the next mayor's tenure? So what is about the institutional continuity of any kind of social or developmental agenda or infrastructure development program, which has been taken by one mayor, and what happens during the tenure of the second incumbent? If you can elaborate a bit on that.
Thank you for the question. It's a very critical question, and I think a very tricky question. Usually, we have competing parties in here. Each party comes with an agenda, and as you see, all the exchanges and rapid change in the U.S. politics, how it comes between the Democrats and also Republicans. So coming from a very extreme background and bringing the social kind of agenda back on the platform, so, it was really hard to compete and also to convince that the socialism background and agenda is coming back to the biggest city here in the US, which is like the iconic city here, I think, I would say global, not only in the US. The agenda was defeated too much with many Republicans, and it becomes like a very critical issues to discuss, especially with the upcoming elections that come into to the U.S. Having also the governor of the state itself in Albany, so he is running for re-election, and it's something like to reconsider whether this agenda will continue or not. It is still a question. How much of success it can have down the road, something also can be tested in there with competing powers between the mayor, excuse me, between the mayor and also the capital, the Albany in here, and what kind of power and executive power that is given to the mayor. And would like to also reflect on the personalization of overpower, whether it's risk in the urban governance. I would say yes, that risk, the structurally presenting the risk in there. But when we have executive authority is concentrated in one person, the charter, competence, integrity, and coalition building skills, and the person is controlled by the person and shapes the governance outcome. We have the case of Adams bribery, and also the Bloomberg stop the Frisk case proves that. But anyone can argue that strong mayor model is risk-free, but it's not engaging with them that much evidence. To say whether this fundamentally flawed in the model that we have, I would say no, because evidence is not equally clear. In the case of Mamdani, we have a very promising agenda, how much he can, achieve in there. We have the housing, we have the transit, we have the healthcare, we have all these social kind of very strong agenda in there. How much can be achievable? That's also a question, can be proven in the next, a few years of his mandate in the office. But something to highlight that the New York City mayoral election has energized the debate, because it turns what was often a theoretical discussion in a very visible way to a real-time case, with Mamdan Zahrani having that very strong agenda, and also very strong victory, I would say in there. But given the scale and complexity of New York City and the influence of the leadership is not just a symbolic, it's immediately translate into shift from policy direction to governing style and public expectations from the new mayor. And everyone is expecting a lot to happen. We can see like quick issues like housing, public safety, social policy, which reinforcing the argument that strong mayor system can significantly shape the urban outcome through individual leadership. But at the same time, the case of New York exposes the limits of personalization. Even strong electoral mandate, and mayor doesn't govern alone by himself. So budget decision requires negotiation with the upper states and the city council. Physical tools often also related to federal government approvals. And implementation ultimately rests on a large professional civil service system that remains consistent across administrations. And the leadership in here, it comes also for pushing the agenda forward and how much we can get that push forward. I would say just concluding with that as a takeaway, whether strong mayors are good or bad, but whether it's not about whether they are strong or weak, whether that's good or bad, but it's whether the system around them is supporting them is robust enough to ensure continuity beyond the single administration, because single administration can happen there for 4 years and then it ended. And I would like also to highlight on the points that I hope I'm not pronouncing the name wrongly, Miss Vachana or Vachana. So I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing the name incorrectly. But she highlighted a very critical point about the leadership of women. So despite the fact that we have here a very robust, agendas for mayors and all that in here, we still have in the U.S. also less representation of women mayors in that realm. Globally as well, it's like fewer than 5% in there. The voice of women is very important, again, to acknowledge that. And I would just conclude with there is no fixed model for mayor in there that can be adopted anywhere and everywhere. It depends on the structure of the country and the culture and the support system around the mayor himself. Mayor Mamdani is a model in there, but the next few years can prove whether that can be, replicated everywhere or can be adopted in different ways. With that, I will conclude. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. I would like to come back to Dr. Ramanath. Can you hear me? Dr. Ramanath Jha?
Oh, he seems to have left.
Oh,
Zasab?
Has he left?
Yes, tell me.
Okay. No, I was just having one question, that what role do you see of citizen movement or citizen voices in this, your understanding about this municipal leadership, on the impact on the municipal leadership, or its focus, or the kind of agenda direction? So what's that, and does it vary depending on higher urbanized state and lower urbanized state, or is there any role of that depending on the level of education of the state? So do you have any opinion on that, the role of citizens organizations or citizens movement in strengthening the leadership role of municipal governance?
Actually, citizens are quite organized in cities, several cities, but the constitutional framework that we have, the municipal architecture, that does not allow them the kind of role that a democracy would envisage for citizens. So at the moment, what the NGOs and citizens groups do is that they petition the municipal commissioner. So they take their grievances to him, talk about his grievances, and then want justice to be done in terms of delivering on the grievances of the people. So again, the third tier of governance in a country expects that you will have the municipal leadership. Below that, you will further decentralize into wards committees. And within the wards committees, you will further decentralize at the local level, where citizens have powers and citizens have a voice in what happens in the municipal corporation. Now, this was attempted several years back through the Nagar Raj bill, if you remember. And it was part of the JNNU-RM, where it was mandated that if the municipal corporations did not adopt the bill and the state did not adopt the bill, then monies would not be passed on to the states and the cities. So what happened was that many of the states did pass the bill, but they kept it in abeyance, and finally they allowed the bills to die. So at the moment, in none of the states you have this Nagar Raj bill, which provided powers to the citizens active anywhere. They're all dormant and they have not been brought into operation. But obviously, in many European democratic countries, citizens have very powerful voices, especially in the smaller democratic countries like Switzerland, etc., where 50,000 residents, if they sign up an application, then that becomes a subject that is put to vote in the municipal corporation. We don't have that kind of a situation. On the question of municipal leadership that we were discussing, and New York came into question several times, that if you have a very powerful mayor, is it risk-laden? Actually, the New York Charter and the State Act of the New York empowers the governor to remove the New York mayor on certain charges that could be served on him. And pending those charges, he could suspend him. So there is a check. The only question is that New York has not had mayors in the past, in the history of New York, where this power has been exercised, which means that mayors have been acting within the four bounds of law, and they have not overstepped in their jurisdiction. So I think the more important point is, what is the kind of situation that exists in your city? Now, if you have tremendous pressure in terms of demography and the kind of growth that is expected by the citizens, and if you are not able to deliver at speed, then there is a problem. You will be able to deliver at speed if you have powers concentrated in a person, because you are almost in a warlike situation where every day there are crises that are emerging. So someone should be able to take decisions very quickly. Now, unless you have a powerful person who is at the helm of affairs, that kind of a situation cannot be tackled. Wars need powerful generals, and cities that are at war need powerful people. Our cities are bursting, especially the larger ones are bursting at the seams. Lots of jobs to be done. Many services are collapsing. Unauthorized construction is going on, and decisions cannot be taken because no one has a clear-cut responsibility to take decisions. As I explained, municipal commissioners are only municipal managers, and they will not go beyond the bounds of a bureaucratic norm and take decisions. That is what calls for municipal leadership in the hands of the mayor. But I will go back again to the point that you can't have a powerful mayor when you have a powerless city. The city has to have powers first.
Thank you. Thank you for flagging very, very purposefully this that term which you have used, that we replace the caged pigeon,
Caged parrot with a caged lion.
Caged parrot with a caged lion. Very, very interesting comparison. So I'd like to move to Ms. Vachana. If you want to reflect on the points which have already been highlighted, or we to add some more, any point to that we discussed.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Souvik. So, yeah, I mean, it's first of all, thanks so much, Dr. Wafa. So, happy to hear that the thought of having women in leadership really resonated with you. But then, for any leadership to work, like just Dr. Ramanath Jha also just mentioned, it's really important to have strong urban local governments. So that is what will actually enable leadership. And what we have heard from our fellow panelists from on South Africa and USA is that that's what is actually important, right? So and what that also showed us is also the importance to align power, accountability, and leadership as well. So it's important to bring, and backed by adequate capacities at the urban local government level. So that's very important. Another aspect which I would like to close with is that 74th Constitution Amendment Act, when it gave a framework, which was about 30 years back, more than 30 years back, in fact, it basically adopted a one-size-fits-all approach. So basically, it is not differentiating the model that is suited for a metropolitan city versus a small city with just 25,000 population, right? So it's important. I think we're at a critical juncture. We need to revisit some of these things, which obviously a constitutional amendment is not required in India's case. Even state governments can take such leadership, but it is really important that we actually ask whether we are willing to take fundamental institutional reforms that will help our cities deliver, right? Because globally, if we look at, if strong cities are built on strong urban local governments, and that's where the reforms must begin. So on that note, I would like to end. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. So we are now almost more than 2 hours. So we would conclude in 5 minutes. So I now request Dr. Balveer Arora ji.
Dr. Souvanic, can I just make one quick comment?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I think I just want to highlight one major issue. When we talk about powerful mayors, I mean, why Mahmood Mamdani we think is a powerful mayor? It's not just the structure, but it's also the kind of process being unleashed. So power for whom? Because cities in India are and across the globe are centers of huge capital accumulation taking place, and where phenomenal surplus is getting generated. So how I look in the Indian context is this power, why I'm so obsessed with this whole question of democratizing this power. How do you democratize this entire process? That is where I think I look the governance framework. That's the first point. The second point, Dr. Souvanic, which is important, is irrespective of the fact whether the city governance is integrated, irrespective of the fact whether there is power, irrespective of all that. But once there is an electoral process, the answerability of the elected mayor or the elected council is far city commissioner or the city manager. And there are phenomenal anecdotes to share. And if time permits, I mean, I'll just take a minute, because while serving in Simla, I remember when we had this massive snowfall, and then we were down with electricity because, the snowfall took toll on the trees, and the tree fell on our wires, and we couldn't restore electricity. And remember that electricity is a parastatal. It is run by a provincial government. So by a provincial government, and I get these calls, regular calls from the people that we are not getting calls. And after 3 days, I tried to explain to a resident that, sir, the electricity department is not under the city municipal corporation. It's a parastatal. Dr. Souvanic, the answer that I got, and that is what reminds what the duality in the system. He said, look, boss, I have not voted for the electricity department. I voted for you. It is your responsibility to ensure that I get electricity. So that duality exists. That's a fundamental question. So once this electoral process, I think that reminds of the fact that whereas this process exists, unfortunately, the whole domain of functionality of the city government needs to be revisited, needs to be reclaimed through different set of processes. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very, very right point which you highlighted, that fractured governance mechanism. So I'd now request Dr. Balveer Arora to share his concluding remarks, and then finally it would be the concluding remarks will be given by our Kirtiji.
Yeah, no, I will be very brief, because we have had a very rich session with a lot of insights and a lot of one has learned a lot on how these processes can function, could function. The ideas are all there, and yet we don't seem to be making headway. So I think I fully endorse what Tikender Singh Panwar said about democratization. I think power ultimately flows from the people, and we need to keep that in mind when we are looking for solutions, that ultimately self-government, local self-government, and the power that flows from it is where we should be looking at. And I leave it at that. It's a very long session. Thanks. And Kirti
Thank
Bhai
you.
will do the
Thank you.
honors.
Yeah, Kirtiji, your final words
No,
on
no,
today's.
no final word. I think, it's a very rich conversation. I think, very enlightened. And I'm very glad that we are such a diverse and knowledgeable panel. As a matter of fact, when there's 2 hours and 15 minutes, and it's a fag end of the day, I wish it could continue for another half an hour, because there is so much that one could learn and so much one could hear and understand. But I think every good thing has to end. So thank you very much. And I really want to keep my promise of thanking everyone individually, because each one has made a tremendous contribution in terms of what we're discussing. So thank you, Balveer sir. Your wisdom is amazing, and I think you give it in such slow motion, and I think that it goes on very well. Thank you, Balveer sir. Tathagat is not here, and I say this from the very beginning. He's at the heart of this whole exercise, that we could put together these 4 webinars, very meaningful one, and get people from all over, people from New York and people from South Africa. And thank you, Tathagat. Souvanic, you're part of the family, and I think you're brilliant in terms of how you managed the event today. I think, as a matter of fact, I was thinking that, this is not going to kind of go finish, in time, because you never stopped anyone except for 1 or 2 people. And I thought we'll go on till 10 o'clock, but I think we managed finally very well. So thank you very much. Carlton, I think, South Africa is very meaningful in terms of what we learned from South Africa. And I think our systems are very close parallels. And therefore, I think, continues to learn from what you people are doing. And it's a vibrant democracy. And there is so much to learn from what you said. I think it was very, very interesting. Wafa ji, I was most impressed with you. I was most impressed with you because you brought in some remarkably rich analysis of how system works, what are the differences, how different system respond to different situations, and what one could pick up and how it works. Very rich, and thank you very much. Ramnath Saab, every time I hear you, I think मुझे अहमदाबाद छोड़ के पुनः जाके बैठना है आपके पास। बस इतना आप इतने होशियार हैं, इतनी अच्छी बात करते हैं, इतना जानते हैं। It's unbelievable. I think every time I think of a webinar, I think of Ramanath Jha, and every time you prove to be simply wonderful. So thank you very much. Vachana ji, I'm very impressed and very happy that you brought in this whole issue of women's role in leadership. And a lot of structural things have happened. I think, the constitutional change that have happened. You're talking about something like 40,000 women out of 80,000 in a position of leadership. And that's a huge, huge force. And I think, to talk about them, to give them roles and responsibility, and I think it's terrific. And Tikender साहब, आप तो बहुत ही होशियार है भाई साहब. Very nice, and I think, you bring in lots of theoretical framework, I think, in a discussion. And of course, I think, I think you use this exposure and an effort in Kerala more meaningfully than most people I know. Of course, one of the reasons is this, that he got very deeply involved and very passionate about things. But other thing is this, that every time I hear you, you bring in such enormous amount of insight into how systems work and what you could learn from Kerala, because Kerala is, as a matter of fact, as you know very well, I've been pushing Tamil Nadu government, I've been pushing Gujarat government, I've been pushing the Karnataka government, pushing Andhra Pradesh government to set up state commission on urbanization, and at least Kerala has done it, and I think it's very rich learning from. So I didn't want to take even this long a time, but I have, and thank you very much again for this very rich discussion. This is just the second part of a 4-part webinar series. The third one is coming in 2 more weeks. Will share once again with you the brochure and the poster. Invite you again to come in and participate and contribute. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll now close the event. Thank you all.